Okay, welcome back to another scenario. This one is, what if US states were medieval kingdoms? And basically what that just means is that, they're going to be fighting each other. Because, no one's ever done this before. But yeah. So, in this timeline, this is the entire world for some reason. And, it's like 1250, about there. And these are all independent nations slash kingdoms, and yeah, they're gonna do some things. So first of all, some of the weaker countries are probably gonna want to like band together and unite because they might as well. So we're gonna see like over here, this sort of what's this called, Mid-Atlantic Union. We got Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So we have this union forming because some these guys just want more protection. Bam. And yeah, we're gonna see a similar thing happen down here in the south where you have Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And we'll throw in, nah, not Missouri. But yeah, we have these guys coming together, and that's pretty good for them to form this confederacy type of thing. Because, there's big, bad, scary Texas over here. And Texas is obviously pretty powerful. And so they're going to want to go after some states. And so we're going to see that they go after New Mexico first to reclaim their old land over here. And pretty quickly they start rolling in over here. I guess this would be coast in this timeline, so they're going to go along the coast here and take all of this. And then they move in from the north over here, take over the Albuquerque castle, and start moving around like this. They do this to encircle some troops over here. From there, they do this big crunch in, where they just, kind of pincer it over here. From there, New Mexico is not looking too good. So after some further pushing and cutting into half, we see that New Mexico is going to surrender. So, possibly unsurprisingly, in this peace treaty, we're going to see full annexation, and New Mexico is now going to be part of Texas. Bam. Bam. And there. Anyway, moving on from Texas, over here in just sort of the Midwest area, we're just going to see some smaller conflicts, such as Nebraska and Iowa. What would the reason for this be? Probably just Nebraska wants some more corn because they want their economy to be better. And so things go in medieval times. And so they start pushing into Iowa. However, Iowa is not weak, so they're going to start pushing into Nebraska. From there, we see some stalemating until Iowa eventually breaks through the defensives of Nebraska. Yeah, that is Nebraska. And they isolate some troops over here. This is a big loss for Nebraska, and Iowa starts moving through the north. Iowa then kicks them out of the south down here. From there, things are not looking good for Nebraska. And, yeah. Iowa starts rolling in. However, obviously, Iowa versus Nebraska is not as one-sided as Texas versus New Mexico. So after a while, we are going to see this war come to a stalemate, and a peace treaty will be signed. So bad idea from Nebraska to invade Iowa. The peace treaty will simply just establish a new border. Well, that will be one of the things it does. And this new border is going to be not like that. This new border will look something like this. And, yep, that looks awful, but that's okay. However, Iowa is going to want to further weaken Nebraska, and obviously that will be pretty easy since a lot of people in Nebraska are now pretty upset at their government for losing the war. So we're going to see that Nebraska is going to be split into thirds, and yeah, poor Nebraska. Anyway, probably over in North Carolina, we're going to see that they are going to go on the offensive and invade South Carolina. And as they start pushing in, we see that this goes on like normal for a little while until Georgia joins in on their own side, like in purple. I feel like that's most different looking. And so yeah, pretty quickly South Carolina gets split by these two, and a peace treaty will be made. So, yeah, pretty obviously it's just going to be South Carolina getting divided up in half, roughly in half. North Carolina will get this, and Georgia will get this, and North Carolina is kind of upset at Georgia because, on one hand they did make the war slightly easier, but on the other hand, North Carolina was still, definitely going to win anyway, and they were going to fully annex South Carolina. So they kind of feel like Georgia stole some of their land. But, well. Anyway, now going up to New England over here, we're going to see that New York, who is also a pretty powerful country, is going to start expanding, and their first target is going to be probably Connecticut. I was going to say Vermont, but why would they even do that? And, Connecticut, they want to defend New York City better. So pretty quickly, New York starts pushing into Connecticut. However, Connecticut goes to the other New England states, and they're like, yo guys, if you let New York do this, then they're probably just going to keep going after all of you. We're going to see a big Yankees empire over here, so we don't want that. And this is going to actually be very effective, and the rest of New England will come to Connecticut's defense. Now, is all of New England stronger than New York? I'm not sure. Massachusetts is probably doing the most here. But with the surprise attack, they kind of have to jump on New York, and so they're going to get pretty good invasion out here. There is not a lot out here, though. Actually, there is, some stuff over here, I think. But yeah, New York will continue pushing into Rhode Island and Connecticut, moving up almost into Massachusetts. And things are not looking too good for New England, as New York starts pushing them back. They do make a pretty big offensive over here in the north. But Connecticut fully falls, and pretty quickly we kind of see that New England is winning in the north, and New York is winning in the south. So with things not looking good, we're going to see that New England still is not quite done yet. Because over here in Pennsylvania, / the Mid-Atlantic Union, these guys are also pretty scared of New York. So New England is going to be like, hey guys, you want some free land, including possibly some of, if not all, of New York City? And that's going to be pretty good of a deal. Sounds pretty nice. So the Mid-Atlantic Union is going to join in on this, and now things are not looking too good for New York. They pretty quickly get split in half, and this entire eastern or western part falls. They kind of fill out back here, but they now start getting pushed out of New England, only just holding on to some of Connecticut. New England rolls in here again, and the Mid-Atlantics go up here. There's a landing made on Long Island, 2 in fact. Eventually Connecticut is liberated. From there, New York is just left at New York City, which is eventually taken, or probably just surrenders. And that is the end of the Great Northeast War. And so, blam. We now get to look at the peace treaty again, of course. So first of all, we're going to see that New England is going to, they're going to unionize, and they're also going to be taking a very good chunk of land. Is this the brush size I was using? Yes. So they're going to get something that looks like this, and that is pretty good. They also get Long Island, and now we've got to erase the borders. So, you know what, I'll make that easy for you. And there we go, the borders are gone. And as for the rest of New York, first of all, we're going to see that, or actually, not even first of all, we just see that the rest of it is going to go over to the Mid-Atlantic Union. And some of the New Yorkers over in this area were actually, in support of this, so that's not even that bad for them. So now we have pretty powerful 2 countries over here. New York City is roughly split, but more of it goes to the Mid-Atlantic Union, as promised. And so, that is good. Anyway, over here in California, things are going not great for them, because while they are very powerful, they are also, their population is a little bit, there's high prices, that's the word I'm looking for. But, California's going to try to combat that by helping their economy out by invading Nevada. And things are going to go pretty well as they take Las Vegas. Well, they don't take Las Vegas, but they get on the doorstep of Las Vegas. They also take Carson City up here. However, Las Vegas is actually proving a lot more difficult than they expected to fight. And, California does have a really good economy, but it's just that, the prices and cost of living are high. And because it is medieval times, and, medieval times, the kings and the nobility kind of took everything for themselves. And there's going on especially big over here in California as King Newsom is taking a lot of money. And some of the peasants slash lower class are going to start to get pretty angry, especially as California fails to invade Nevada. So we're eventually going to see some rebellions pop up, primarily down here in the south. And yeah, that's not good for California. They immediately recall their troops out of Nevada. They're like, hey, you want to just call this a day? But Nevada, they want revenge. And so they're going to start pushing in and helping out the rebels. The rebels secure the entire south, and then we now see a whole breakaway state in the north start to form up. And yeah, things aren't looking too good for California, mainly because of the rebellion who's doing most of the work here. And yeah, they fall pretty quickly. Well, not pretty quickly, but they do eventually fall. So California, probably the strongest state, is actually not done well at all, because the nobility was too greedy, because, medieval times, woo. Okay, but anyway, we're going to see that breakaway state in the north form. We're going to see that Nevada is going to get a decent amount of land, as well as a coastline. That's the main thing they wanted. And down in the south, we have that new government, the rebels taking over. And yeah, nice little peasants revolt. And the map is already looking pretty different. Anyway, the Texan Empire is not stopping here, because they are now going after two at once, Oklahoma and Kansas. So that is something that they're going to do, and they start pushing up into Oklahoma and Kansas, as you would expect. So that's going pretty well. We're actually going to see that South Kansas is going to join their side, just because they want to, kind of reclaim their former glory in being big. So, yeah. Anyway, Texas is, Texas, so things go pretty easily for them. And soon enough, it's just left as this, and that is how this ends up. So the Texan Empire is expanding once again. There we go. The deal here is that Texas is probably going to get most of the land. They get all of this, which is, pretty good for them. Bam. Thankfully, we're kind of eliminating the straight line, because if it was just this big straight line, that would look stupid. And, not a lot of straight line borders in medieval times. Anyway, as for the rest of this area, which is mostly just Kansas, but also a little bit of Oklahoma, it's going to be losing some land up in the north to South Nebraska, but it's not that much, because South Nebraska did not do too much in this war. It kind of just, rode off of Texas's power. And the rest of this is made into this weird new union thing between Kansas and the tiny bit of Oklahoma. However, we do see that this area over here is going to kind of break off into a nice little thing. Speaking of places breaking off, we're going to look down here to Florida, and I'm not sure where Miami is. Let me look that up. Okay, now that I know where Miami is, we're going to see that Miami is actually going to be able to successfully break off into its own city-state. So that's pretty good for them. Over here, Georgia and North Carolina are still angry at each other. And in fact, they're so angry that they're going to go to war. Because, medieval times, wars broke out pretty quickly. So North Carolina is going to start pushing along the coast of Georgia. Meanwhile, Georgia goes more inland. That's like the same color as the ocean, so let's fix that. So at first this war just goes pretty simply like this. Georgia gets landlocked, but they also take a lot of land from the Carolina Empire. However, things are not going to be so simple, because North Carolina has a little secret ally in Florida, who is, kind of not doing great after the loss of Miami. and they want some, more land to help, pretty much replenish themselves. So they start pushing up into Georgia, and Georgia is going to recall all of its troops up here, and with that they actually do manage to make a pretty nice counteroffensive, like this. Probably not that nice though, like this. And from there we see that the war is kind of going to stalemate as Georgia goes heavily on the defensive. The red team does just keep slowly squishing them in though. And this war goes on for quite a few years, and these countries are all getting really sick and tired of this, and that makes them pretty vulnerable, because all of a sudden, the Confederacy, they are barging on in here. We also see that Virginia is going to take this opportunity to join in, and they're also going to take this opportunity to invade West Virginia. So we now have this massive Southern War breakout, and all of a sudden, Miami is pretty glad they broke away from Florida now. But, the Confederacy Union thing over here, they are pretty powerful. And so let me just do this. Okay, but as I was saying, we see that the Confederacy Union sort of thing is going to start pushing into Georgia as well. I'll also be kicking out Florida's troops, and that goes pretty easily since they mostly just retreat out to here. Meanwhile, Virginia is also kind of taking care of West Virginia mostly, while also getting a tiny little push down here in North Carolina. As for Carolina, they actually do make a small counteroffensive, well actually just offensive over here, taking some Tennessee and Virginia. I'm out of breath. But yeah, over here in Georgia is kind of holding their own, but there's a much bigger issue right now, which has also just pushed Florida out of them and has now reached the main Atlantic Ocean, as well as cut across the entire Florida Panhandle region. Down in southern Florida, we're bringing out grain. There's a lot of rebels down here, mostly peasants and farmers, who want, payment and freedom and rights and all that. So yeah, things look about like that. And then over here, Georgia pushes out North Carolina, or really just Carolina. But now they turn to the defensive and just focus in on. Well, they also go into Florida a little bit. Actually, they probably wouldn't. But yeah, they mostly just focus on the defensive, which actually kind of works for them. These guys are pretty big, but they aren't like that insanely strong. But anyway, Virginia finishes off West Virginia. And they also get pushed out of North Carolina, though, so that's something. North Carolina makes a small offensive up here, but now that Virginia has been with West Virginia, they'll be turning their troops down south pretty soon. Anyway, the Confederate Union has just reclaimed all of their and Virginia's land, and now they're making a push into Carolina, which is supported by the new incoming troops from Virginia. And this creates a little spearhead down here. And we see this very big encirclement be made. And, what they do here is actually kind of clever, because now we have Carolina and Georgian troops encircled. And so they're just going to start, fighting each other first. And that weakens them up a whole lot, and makes it a lot easier for the Confederacy. Whoa, everything went pink. Anyway, North Carolina is pushed out of Virginia, but they do reclaim some of their own land a little bit. But that's not going to last too long, because now Virginia is pushing in from the north up here. No other countries really want to get involved on this war, so no one is going to. We see that Georgia slowly gets pushed back, well, fairly slowly, and eventually these two countries are both going to collapse. And so yeah, the Confederacy and Virginia win, and also kind of the Floridian rebels. That's what it's called. So over here, we're gonna start down in Florida, where the Floridian rebels have really created a little holy Floridian empire down here. So we have a ton of smaller countries and even straight up just city-states form to pretend there's cities here. I mean, there is, I'm sure, some, but big cities. And yeah, so a lot of city-states and small nations down here, and probably nothing beyond that. Okay, so we're now going to turn up here. We're going to see this new border be drawn right here. The Confederacy is going to get all of Georgia, all of this Southern Carolina, not to be confused with South Carolina, but Southern Carolina in general, and some of Florida. Just like this. And yeah, there as well. The rest of Carolina will be going over to Virginia, as well as all of West Virginia. Bam. Okay, now the map is looking like this. Problem area down there. Alaska and Hawaii, they honestly just don't really do that much. Thing is, though, that since this is like medieval times, it's a little bit harder to control vast areas of land. So we see that like northern Alaska is just kind of gonna break away from southern Alaska. The border is literally just like the coast. So yeah, this is like more like they would call these people like the they call it like Inuit, or is Inuit over in Canada? I don't know, but the tribes. And then Hawaii, honestly, I mean, the islands might like break off. Now we're gonna say that this island breaks off, and yeah, we're gonna say that Hawaii collapses into these three areas. Anyway, moving up to probably like Michigan, they are, they control a lot of the Great Lakes, and they want a nice Great Lakes empire. So of course, countries in the medieval era expanded a whole lot. So Michigan is just kind of going to go into Wisconsin without any real reason, and no one is really going to do much about it other than Wisconsin, of course. But yeah, Wisconsin starts getting pushed by Michigan. They lose their entire coast on Lake Michigan, which would technically just be part of the ocean in this world, where the entire world is just America. And yeah, just to speed things up, Wisconsin doesn't really stand much of a chance. I mean, they are, I'm sure, pretty strong in real life, but like, eventually, just Michigan's been building up a lot more since the start of this video, whenever year that would be. But anyway, Michigan is going to be taking all of Wisconsin's Lake Michigan coast, as well as most of their coast in general, but they are still left with a little bit up in the Gulf of Superior, I guess. But yeah, with that, their upper peninsula is looking a lot better. However, they still need to connect up here. And obviously they don't want to go after Illinois first, so they're going to want to go after Indiana. However, the king, that's what it's called, of Illinois is going to kind of suspect that, and they're going to do a little preemptive movement down here in Illinois first. And they immediately just shoot across the coast here, so now that's all the land that Michigan wanted gone. And they also just go straight over to Ohio, so that Michigan can't even invade Illinois, or they can't even invade Indiana without having to go through Illinois' troops. And yeah, Illinois is not going to be winning this, so rest in peace. However, while this happens, we see a completely, legally, I guess you could say, separate war form out, which is that Michigan is going to decide to invade Ohio in response. That's gonna, frighten Illinois. And so that's gonna start happening. We also see that the Mid-Atlantic Federation or whatever is gonna join their side. Now this isn't like a formal alliance thing, and it's not permanent. It's just these guys wanting some land in Ohio. And yeah, so Ohio is not gonna survive for very long. And neither is Indiana, which is soon to fall now. So, looking at this peace treaty, boom. We're going to see that, first of all, Illinois is taking all of Indiana. Rest in peace. And then, as for Ohio, it's going to be not fully annexed, but it's definitely going to be losing a lot of its land to both Michigan and the Mid-Atlantic Union thing. the Mid-Atlantic Union will get all of this, and Michigan will get all of this. So yeah, Ohio is somewhat okay. The thing is, though, they're very weak, and the Virginian Empire over here is kind of looking at them a little hungrily, so they're going to be scared and unite with Kentucky, because, of course, they would. But things aren't that smooth, though, because some people over here in Kentucky don't like that, so they're going to revolt and throw a revolution, which goes pretty well, so well that I don't even need to show it on the map, because these guys are now independent. However, that might have been a little bit of a stupid move, because then they get obliterated by the Confederacy and Illinois, who invade them at the same time, and this war literally lasts like 2 days, so don't even need to show it on the map. But yeah, so Kentucky kind of face palms at their brethren over here who just left, only to get immediately chomped up because they were stupid. And yeah, Missouri is just sitting there in the chaos. That's probably not going to last for long, because guess what? They're going to invade it now. So yeah, Missouri gets invaded by all these guys, including the Kansas-Oklahoma Union, because they also want some land back after losing, well, most of their land, because, like, they had all of this, technically, if you count Oklahoma as well. And I mean, this doesn't look like too fair of a war. However, as it goes on, we see that things aren't going to be that easy necessarily, because, I mean, obviously this on its own would be very easy. However, some people are a little bit tired of the Confederacy's expansion, and one of those people is Texas. And Texas is definitely the strongest country in this world right now, so that's not too great for the Confederacy. And neither is the Ohio-Kentucky thing, looking for revenge, as well as Virginia betraying them, because, well, this is just a good opportunity. So now, and they also get backed up by these guys in exchange for, some hay, probably, some crops, and some slaves, probably, because medieval times are not good. But yeah, anyway, with this, things aren't looking too good for a whole lot of people now, because, well, Texas is going to start immediately just rolling in here. They go straight down to Louisiana, go over to, like, the Florida Panhandle, that's what it's called. I almost died there. And they start going up into the Oklahoma-Kansas Union, and that falls almost immediately. Missouri starts coming back. However, they are not, like, fully replenished, because Texas doesn't really actually care about them. They just saw this as a good opportunity to halt the Confederacy. Speaking of the Confederacy being halted, yeah, that's definitely going to be happening up here. Illinois is just going to be like, hey guys, if we leave the war now, can we just, like, not die? And everyone's just kind of going to accept, because they don't really want to bother fighting them. Texas has no interest in doing so and probably leave the war right after. Missouri is too war-torn, that's the word. These guys obviously are on the same side, technically. And these guys kind of don't want to bother with it, so eventually people, agree to let them go. However, the Confederacy asks the same thing, and obviously, people do not want that, so, yeah. They are not accepted. And bam, that is the end of that pretty big war. Very big war, even. So in this peace treaty, we're going to be seeing a whole lot of change. First and foremost, let's fix this coast. But next, we're going to have sea. Yeah, we're going to have sea. But we're going to look at Texas, get a whole bunch of land over here. That's all of Louisiana, most of Arkansas, half of Mississippi, and a good chunk of Alabama, and a little sliver of Florida. So, yep, that's all that they are getting. Belch, I burped. Exquezzle me. As for the Kansas-Oklahoma Union, they're not going to exist anymore. Texas will take this, and Missouri will take the rest. Missouri will also be taking all of this. However, they will still lose a little bit of land over to the Illinois Empire. Such probably looking a little something like this. Now this might take a little second here, but we just gotta swoop and blammo and sclammo and whammo. And as for the rest of Confederacy, well, first of all, they still got to lose some land over to the Kentucky Ohio Union. So Kentucky does now get most of their land back. Not the one part that Illinois gobbled up, but some of it they still do get, so that's good for them. And the Virginian Empire is going to be massively expanding down here. Now, obviously, the Confederacy, the people of it being, rowdy peasants, are going to want to break up with the rest of the Union now. So we're going to see it kind of get split into north, south, and middle. So first of all, we used to have Florida in the middle. Then we have, I guess you could call this Georgia over here. They're back. And then this thing, I don't even know, that's southern Tennessee plus northern Alabama and surrounding lands. Yeah, I suppose. Anyway, we're gonna go over here because I really have not done a lot over here. We're going to see that we have a little Cascadian Union form between Oregon and Washington. And I doubt we'll just leave it. But yeah, the Cascadian Union over here, they formed because they think they can become strong. And so they're probably right. The first target is North California, and that war is over very quickly, and it's very boring, so we don't even need to show it. So obviously, North California is dead. Now, though, they're going to move on over here to Idaho, which is a little bit more interesting, because Idaho is going to get a support over here in Nevada. However, we're going to see the great nation of Wyoming. That's really going to change the war. But yeah, they're going to join Cascadia's side. However, we see Montana joins the blue team, and Utah joins the red. And then we see a third front enter, being Arizona and the remnants of California. So the red team is going to begin this by connecting up with each other, so that's good for them. Push into the Nevadan deserts a little bit, and also start to put California under threat. A lot of these Northern Californians didn't really want to be Nevada, but yeah, Nevada, they took a lot of California just because they wanted coast, and a lot of these people really did not want that. So it's going to be pretty easy. The California troops meet no resistance up here, and they take over a lot of land easily. Over here, Las Vegas gets encircled, and there's a small push made into Utah. We see that the blue team is finally going to not lose because they're going to sweep through Wyoming. I mean, I know there's the Rocky Mountains and all that, but it's Wyoming. But yeah, Utah starts getting invaded from the north as well. Cascadia does push into Idaho, however, and a little bit in Montana as well. Las Vegas follows, and I mean, what's even out here in the middle of Nevada? They're dead. Yes. Now Utah has a lot of support from Cascadia. However, it might not be enough because now they're getting invaded from the south and from the north up here. These guys are going to make a small comeback and technically liberate Nevada, although I don't like that, so they're going to remove it. And from here, the war kind of stalemates. So all three sides kind of won, kind of lost, except for the pink team, which just won. And so, yeah, the entire west of the U.S. was in this, unless you count Colorado, but hopefully you don't. So anyway, we're going to be seeing that California is going to get back most of their lost land, as well as a decent amount extra, well, other than in the north, of course. Cascadia is going to get a lot of northern Nevada. They're also going to get some of Idaho, including the entire peninsula, unless you count this. But actually, that border looks bad, so actually, they're going to get that too. They also get a nice chunk of northern Montana. Over here in Utah, though, we're going to see that Idaho is going to take this. And now Nevada also loses some land to Idaho, and now they were on the same side. However, Idaho kind of feels like Nevada failed in that, so that's why this is happening. Yeah. And Wyoming also got obliterated in this war, so they're going to be losing a lot of land. No longer a square. We'll get to Arizona in a second. So I want to make sure the borders don't get too confusing, because then I might forget who was going to get what. So yeah, California is kind of making a comeback. So if you're from there, then don't kill me. You did good. I just followed that straight line border just because I didn't want just to be a blob, which kind of is, but it's at least a slightly more interesting looking blob. If we really want to make it less blobby, we can do this, just give them a little panhandle. That always makes things look less blobby. I guess so. 11. That seems good. Bam. Montana's kind of a blob, but that's fine. And then, yeah, as for Utah, as for Utah, because they are also getting included in this. But yeah, as for Arizona, they're getting Las Vegas, so that's good for them. And they also get a ton of Utah. So that is extra good. Whoa. Bam. Okay, that is the main P3D. However, after this, Nevada is going to be collapsing, and so is Utah. So they're going to combine together to hopefully not collapse. And they form this awful monstrosity of a country. Over here, Wyoming is like 2 people, so they're going to join this thing. But yeah, anyway, over in Colorado, they're traumatized by all this. And they kind of see this as, these guys want to join them, they ask them, and they would look like this. Colorado does not want that, though, because they feel better off without these people. So, yeah, we just have a random square out here. However, Colorado decides that they want some land, so they are going to just straight up invade these guys. Because, if you're invading someone, then you get to, fully take it over. Well, if you're unionizing, then you still don't get full control. And, yeah, since this country just got, obliterated in that war, yeah, they do not stand any chance, and they surrender pretty quickly. And why did I do this? Maybe just to help make this border look better. That's possible. And that is the truth. I'm gonna make them sharp. Bam. And yes, only untouched states are up here in the north now, so I guess that's where we're going. Over here, the Dakotas are actually going to go to war, not unionize. So you guys, they go to war. Then Minnesota's like, ooh, that's a good opportunity, and they're going to get in on this. And then Washington and South Dakota is going to make a deal with Wisconsin. And then Michigan is going to be like, ooh, I like land. So they're going to get in here. But you know who else likes land? Illinois. So they're going to join the red team. And they're also going to declare war on Iowa, because they want more land. So that spiraled pretty quickly. It was literally just the Dakotas at first, now we're down to, Ohio. Anyway, speaking of starting in the Dakotas, that is where it's going to start. As we see North Dakota start pushing into the south, they're going to take Mount Rushmore, because literally what else is there here? This thing, which I honestly already forget how it got created, is going to join in on this war. They're going to join in on Michigan's side, just because I want there to be 2 of every color. And so, yeah. Anyway, over here, Illinois is going to push up through Iowa. And that goes pretty well for them. Michigan and Illinois are, technically, both colored in right now. However, they aren't really necessarily at war with each other. They are more, because Michigan is kind of on its own side. Well, like these 3 countries, the red team, the yellow team, and the blue team are all invading each other. The purple team is mostly just invading the blue team. So, yeah. And also the yellow team. They're specifically leaving out the red team just because Michigan is scared of Illinois and doesn't want to fight them. And so, yeah, we see this happen, and there goes the mouth of the Mississippi. Michigan will not be invading North Dakota, as I just explained. North Dakota will be invading Minnesota, however. South Dakota starts to fall as this country surprisingly does well. They also meet up down here with this thing, Iowa. I forgot what it was called. And yeah, the yellow team, it's not looking too good for them. They get cut off like that. And from there, it's just a little bit of a squeeze out like this. And if that, if the pink and red teams are successful, so the new peace treaty is going to be made now. These guys, which I don't want to be blobby, so we're doing that, are going to be getting all of this. Like so. North Dakota will be getting most of South Dakota. Probably something that looks like this. They will also be getting a very nice chunk of Minnesota. Michigan will be taking most of Wisconsin's remains, actually about half of Wisconsin's remains, as well as northern Minnesota. And Illinois will actually take a surprising amount of land, all of this. Bam. Okay, so now erasing the old borders, we just gotta, I'll skip ahead again. And there it is. So that's that peace treaty. However, as you can see here, we have a ton of small little countries up here. And these guys are going to see that they're all weak and war-torn, and they're going to agree that they would be better together. So now we see this weird sort of union take place. Well, it's definitely a union, but it's just a weird one. They look like that. Yeah, Michigan is getting pretty big. I'm sure they would definitely want to connect their upper peninsula, which is now bigger than their mainland, I'm sure. Well, we have almost twice as big as their mainland. They would definitely like to connect it up through Chicago. However, they would first have to take Chicago. Just to show you what Michigan wants, though, they would want, like, all of this from Illinois, which would make them pretty big. Well, obviously, they're already pretty big, but it would give them Chicago, which would make them very powerful. But yeah, they do not have that yet. And now every state looks different. We could end the video here, but I want this to actually have a nice conclusion. So, we're going to keep going. Where should we go? We are going to go over to the Virginian Empire over here. And things are not going too well. Because just like how we saw with California earlier, the power, like much earlier, the power has kind of gone to the Virginian leader's head. And, he's not been a good leader. He's taken all the money from the peasants, and people do not have a lot of rights here. And also, there's a whole lot of invaded people down here who probably want to rejoin Georgia, because Georgians and Virginians do not like each other in this timeline. And so we're going to see that a lot of, mostly in the South, we have a lot of rebels break out, and yeah, that is not good for them. Bam. We also might see some more in the north towards Carolina, and just over here in West Virginia. Some of these guys probably want to break away and join these guys, and so the Midwest or Mid-Atlantic Union is also going to get involved. And now we got to make all these light blue. But yeah, so with that, we're going to see that the Mid-Atlantic Union is going to start invading in here, and they start moving through the north because Virginia is fully collapsing due to poor leadership and wealth distribution and growth and all that. And yeah, they get divided up into three, and two of those areas get landlocked. The small one falls. The southern one with ocean access falls. From there, the North Virginian core territory is actually going to surrender just because they want to keep existing. Because if they didn't surrender, then they would definitely not exist anymore. So with that, we are going to see that the actual original government of the Virginian Empire will persist, but just very small now. Well, not very small, but a lot smaller than the old empire, as they now look like this. West Virginia will be kind of given over to the Mid-Atlantic Union, as well as Virginia's little panhandle over here, and also some of northern Virginia, which I guess the panhandle is part of northern Virginia, but, yeah, as for the south, we have a few different areas break off. First of all, we have, actual West Virginia, which is this very small one up here, and they're actually going to join up with the Ohio-Kentucky Union thing, like so. But yeah, we're going to see a Georgian area, which is going to join Georgia, of course. Whammo. Now we're going to see a few, non-joining other countries areas. You have this one over here. We got a pretty big central one, which barely has coast access. And then we got these two guys down here. And yeah, rest in peace, Virginia. Virginian Empire. But not actually, because he still exists. New England still is not doing anything. Anyway, though, we're now coming down to Texas, who is big and scary, and they want more land. And of course, they're going to go after Colorado. And that war is going to be over pretty quick, if you can tell. And yeah, Texas is taking all of Colorado. So that's a little bit distressing for the rest of the world, which is America. And Texas is not done there, because they're also then going to go after these two countries, and I'll let you guess how that goes. So Texas is now gargantuan. So those are the words. They are probably bigger. Well, definitely bigger now that Alaska has been split in two. But like even the whole Alaska, they're probably bigger. Maybe. I'm actually not sure now that I think about it. Blam. But yeah, anyway. Over here, Michigan and the Mid-Atlantic Union have kind of been staring at each other for a while. And, yeah. Well, things are going to go one way, and Michigan is going to start invading. New England fought alongside the Mid-Atlantic Union in the past, but, that's probably like 100 years ago by now, if not more. So, they don't really like them anymore. And, yeah, they're just going to roll in and take New York City, just all of New Jersey. The Virginian Empire is also going to get in on this to reclaim some of their former glory. However, these guys are so petty, that's what it's called. They're just going to start immediately invading the remnants of Virginia, and they're like, oh, well, you asked for this, we were going to let you live, but now you're dead. And yep, there they go. And now doing that kind of doomed these guys, though, as they completely fall. And, yeah. However, these guys are dead. Okay, so New England, which is kind of just the northeast at this point, will be taking all of this land, which is a considerable amount. We get all of New York City now, all of New Jersey, all of Delmarva, the rest of New York, and a good chunk of Pennsylvania. Michigan will, of course, be expanding their Great Lake Empire, which the Great Lakes don't really exist now, but, whatever you would say. Nope, I'm not giving that to you, Ohio, Kentucky. I did not mean to do that. And as for the rest of these guys, they are going to still exist, and they're also going to take a considerable chunk out of Virginia. Virginia is left as hardly even Virginia. They're like half North Carolina now. And as the final nail in the coffin, they are split into two. So now this is Virginia, and it's a new government. So the Virginian Empire is now actually dead. Anyway, Illinois is going to go ahead and invade these guys, so let's show that. However, of course, Michigan, I'm not even going to, yes, I am going to bother, actually. Yeah, they are also going to get involved in this. I like how the Mid-Atlantic Union is kind of shifted south. But anyway, we have these two nations, big rivalry going on. They're both going to start invading the same country just because they like land. And yeah, this goes pretty well for both of them. And we can see that we now get to split up the border here. And the rivals will continue to be rivaling, because we now have this happen. The north goes to Michigan, and the south goes to Illinois, but probably not all of the south, because that would be a lot of land and hard to manage. Would Illinois take all of that? Maybe. Now, I think we're going to see that some of these southern areas are going to opt to join up with this country over here, because why not? And so we have this new union forming. And this will also happen up here. We got to do power rankings right now. Number 1 is Texas. Number 2 is Michigan. Number 3 is Illinois. 4 is Cascadia. 5 is California. 6 is New England. 7 is the Arizona. And honestly, I don't know from there. Maybe 8 is Georgia. 9 is the Mid-Atlantic Union. 10 is this thing, maybe? I don't even know what that is. But, yeah. Anyway, the rivals have both kind of, really done it now, because now they, are both kind of just at their limit, because they're, hold on a second, but they are, wow, this video is longer than I thought it was. Okay, we're gonna have to end it soon. But, yeah, as you can see, both Michigan and Illinois, especially Michigan, have expanded a whole lot since they're, past their original territory, and, they are at their kind of limits now because they're already struggling to keep themselves together, and any more land taken without defeating the other is probably going to make their populations a little bit too unruly. And so, with no other option and also just some border skirmishes, they are officially going to declare war on each other. Michigan is going to go straight for Chicago, and they already encircle it, so that's slightly concerning for these guys. However, they are going to go for the more inland areas, such as Ohio. Mid-Atlantic Union's coming back. And yeah, whoa, that is the ocean. They are not invading that. Michigan starts pushing in through the north here, though. And, they got an ally, and these guys got an ally, and so is Michigan. They're going to get this thing. Missouri, I'll call it. So we have this guy start to push in here. Chicago is still not falling. Michigan does take like a ton of land up here, though. They connect up with their ally as well. However, they lose like all of their western part, and now Detroit is about to fall. Which actually I think it's more up there. So Detroit is right about to fall. So is Chicago, and we see that both of them are going to fall on roughly the same day. So that's a big blow to both of them. However, Illinois is going to make a counteroffensive in Indiana, and from there they're going to push up with their ally in mainland Michigan. And obviously this is pretty bad for Michigan, because now they're being reduced to just their weird, area over here. I mean, they do still have the Upper Peninsula, which was part of them originally, but still. Anyway, down in the south, this country is doing well and pushing into the Illinois Empire decently. However, mainland Michigan has just fallen, and they've now crossed the Erie-Huron connecting point, and they have now taken over the Upper Peninsula, so now Michigan is really just reduced to its, area over there. However, the same could be said for Illinois, who's mostly just left as Indiana now. With that, though, we can see that the blue team and the red team have kind of just become like a straight-ish line. It's not quite straight, but yeah, there's a very clear front line right there. However, though, the red team is going to make an ambitious crossing of Lake Michigan to do a surprise attack over here, and this pays off very well, as they manage to retake Chicago. This is a major turning point in the war, and yeah, things aren't looking too good for the blue team now, especially after they are cut off like this and split in two. And they also, obviously, the red team makes this split a little bit safer for themselves. Down in the south, they start pouring in their troops here, just to knock these guys out of the war, which goes pretty well, and these guys are defeated. However, that did take, a whole lot of troops, so Michigan did make kind of a comeback in that time. However, now with the front line having shifted quite a lot, we can see that the red team is all in the south, and also Michigan, which kind of points up. But anyway, these two guys are going to chain all their troops and start one last push. They go up here, they take over all of this invasion area, that's what I'm trying to say. They now move into Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula, and now Michigan is left as just Minnesota. And so these guys are going to continue pushing them up all the way out here to this little peninsula, and now with that, we see that Illinois officially wins their rivalry against Michigan. And so, in this peace treaty, things are going to be looking pretty different now. we're going to see that Texas, why am I saying Texas? But yeah, we're going to see that Missouri thing gets severely weakened and also split in two, because most of it is going over to Illinois. Yep. The Mid-Atlantic Union is going to get their cut, which is all of this land, so most of Ohio, some of Pennsylvania, New York, and Kentucky. Like this. And as for the rest of Michigan, we're going to see that a lot of it is going to go off to Illinois, so let's get that new border in first. Chicago was very well defended now, and Michigan was never able to achieve their dream of controlling all of Lake Michigan's coast. These guys get a direct access over there, and they also push all the way up here. And in fact, you know what, we're not even going to do that. The rest of Michigan goes fully over to Illinois. And so we now have this massive Illinois empire. Anyway though, for our last event of the video, we're going to see that Texas is looking to expand again. And this time, they're going after these two countries, they're just war-torn. However, Texas is continuing to expand a whole lot, and there's no end in sight to their expansion. And a lot of people aren't too happy with that, such as Illinois, who, just came out of that war, but honestly, that was probably been a while. There's probably a little moment of peace for like a decade or so. So now they're coming at it, Texas too. And that still wouldn't be that fair of a war. However, California and Arizona are both joining Illinois' side. You can also see the northern Florida area, Georgia, this remnant of the CSA. We have this thing, we have the Dakotas, we have all of, all of America is going to declare war on Texas. And, yeah. That is not too good. So the rest of America is going to start pushing in to Texas. They roll over in here through the, what's it called? Oh yeah, the former Confederate area. Texas is still by far the strongest country, so they actually do make a pretty good last effort here. They even take Las Vegas, which is a pretty big win for them. They get actually pretty close to Chicago, however they are cut off, and that is not good for them. We now see a massive spearhead be made here, which encircles all of this, and all of that is going to fall. The New Mexicans and Coloradans are liberated over here with very little resistance because they want to be liberated, and all of Texas's invasion is going to fall. From there, things aren't looking too good for Texas, who is now left as just, actual Texas, and after a very long war, they're eventually going to push Texas all the way down out to the south here. And with that, that final war is over, and all the American countries are going to meet together to hold an agreement. In this agreement, the American countries, now in the year, I don't know what the year would be actually, but yeah, all the American countries are going to come together after defeating Texas, and they're going to realize they are better united. And so they form a new country, and unite all together into the United States of America. And that is what it looks like, all the state borders. And, yeah, is this video over an hour long? Let's see. Nope, we just barely made it under. Good. I want to save over 1 hour videos for just more What If History Restarted. So, yeah. Anyway, that was that mess. So, here, let's turn it back. This is just what the real, actual final map looked like, if you wanted to know. We can also make it blank, because that would look cooler. Yep, there it is. Although, Texas got obliterated. Okay, but anyway, goodbye.